Welcome to Gagliardi's Got Real Estate podcast, hosted by myself, Gerald, Sabri, and Rocky Gagliardi. We look forward to bringing you something fresh, something new the Goulburn Valley hasn't seen before, more informative information. We've got special guests, hot topics. Make sure you follow on your preferred podcast platform, GSRE socials. We hope you enjoy this episode. Good morning, guys, and welcome to episode 9 of our GSRE podcast. And this morning we've got a special guest, Warren Davies, the Unbreakable Farmer, that's got a fantastic story that certainly relates to all things in life in general and motivation and such. So we welcome Warren Davies to our podcast. Welcome, Warren.
Thanks, mate. Thanks for having me on. It's an absolute pleasure to be sitting here chatting with you today, mate. After we've known each other for a long time, so this is good.
No, we certainly have, and I thought this was a little bit of a left field podcast, not as much directly related to real estate straight away, but there's a lot to take out of it for our viewers, from life experiences, resilience, determination, farming background. There's a lot to that our viewers will certainly appreciate, I think, today. So firstly, again, welcome, and just give us a brief on Warren Davies.
Yeah, mate. Well, it's bit of a journey, I suppose, if you want to look at it. I've done lots of things during my life, but basically, if I go back to the start, I was born and bred in Melbourne, mate. I wasn't a country boy to start off with. Grew up in Melbourne for the first 15 years of my life, and mum and dad were small business owners. So dad was a butcher by trade, and they had milk bars, post offices, all those sorts of things. So kind of was, knew the background of small business fairly well as a young kid growing up in the back of milk bars and stuff like that. That was, a good childhood, something that I probably don't discuss much in my presentations, but my childhood, I couldn't ask for anything better. Loving parents and loving family and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. There was just a few challenges that were happening to me as a young kid around my mental health that I never really understood. It was, just little things, anxiety, a bit of low self-esteem and stuff like that. So it was not anything big. But one of the things that I say is, I didn't do anything about it, never asked for any help. And so growing up as that kid in Melbourne, it was good. Like, loved me footy and, mad Richmond supporter. So, used to jump on the train and go and watch the Tigers train and do all that sort of stuff. So it was really good. And, I haven't got a really big family, but the family was close. So, which was really good. And then Dad decided that he wanted to become a farmer, and which was something that he probably harboured for a long time. But we did have friends that were dairy farmers in Gippsland, then moved out to Mooroopna here. So we'd visited them a couple of times, and then Mum's uncle was also a dairy farmer at Trial, so just out of Kerrang. And I often say, as that kid growing up in Melbourne, I had the best of both worlds because I used to spend a lot of time on the farm, and I used to love farming. What I thought farming was, and it's all about tractors, motorbikes, and slug guns, mate. That's what I enjoyed about farming. So when Dad said that we're going to move, to Marrigham, I thought great because, I was struggling at school. I was actually failing year 9. I was subjected to a bit of bullying, which is hard to believe. I'm 6'3", but those little weedy kids were the ones that were picking on me. So to move to the country was going to be a way of reinventing myself, and it was fantastic.
Fresh start.
It was really great. As a 16-year-old kid, driving the old paddock bomb down to the corner or parking under the willow tree next to the channel and jumping on a school bus was really something I'd never experienced before because, my normal way of getting to school was tearing down the Burwood Highway on my 12-speed racer, trying not to get killed by all the traffic. And now I'm driving this paddock bomb, and I had my tractor and my motorbike and my slug gun, so I was really happy. And moving to the country was great because, as you know, mate, footy's a real passion of mine, and and one of the things that I struggled with, particularly at school, was not making the footy team. And you'd be happy to hear this because, I say in my talks, it's I did an exercise at the speaker course I did. It was about unpacking your story, and something I beat myself up for a lot of years, was not making that footy team.
Yeah.
But we lived in North Melbourne zone, and out of the 26 kids, I suppose, that would have made my school team, 9 of them played AFL footy for North Melbourne. So
Yeah, right.
they could have picked a better team.
Great club.
Yeah. They could have picked a better team. But yeah, no, and one of those guys is Darren Crocker.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yep.
I was never going to make that footy team. I'm not that good at football, mate. So,
Yep.
one of the things that I beat myself up about for a long time was not making that footy team, and that had an effect on, my well-being and my confidence. And so moving to Merrigum straight away, went down a footy train and started playing senior footy at 16. Like, it was just like, well, where do you come from? And you can play. And which, I'm not a star, but I could hold my own. And so all these things were going, it was really great moving to the country, school bus, all that sort of stuff.
Yeah.
The freedom, and then group of mates obviously growing, in those, 16, 17 kind of age group years was really great growing up in a small town, especially in the Golden Valley, really friendly. So that was great. So life looked really good, and a lot of that stuff that had happened to me as a kid, I kind of brushed under the carpet. So there was no stress then, and I think that's the underlying theme of my story, not knowing anything about it.
Yeah.
And, once I became a farmer, things changed a little bit. Once I left school and got on the farm, a few challenges were thrown my way, and that kind of changed my trajectory a little bit into, how my well-being, my mental health was at certain stages.
Yeah. So there's obviously a turning point in your life that, from dealing with personal issues to then, I suppose, growing in stature and resilience to end up where you are now and what you're doing with your life. I mean, that's a fascinating story, and hence why you're on this episode.
It's really interesting, mate. It's it's not. It's sometimes challenging, but interesting.
Yeah.
I became a farmer. I worked on a farm for 6 years, and the fellow that I worked for was one of the best dairy farmers in the district, and he promised to teach me everything I needed to know about farming, and which he did. Like, he taught me how to fence and how to pull tractors apart, how to look after cows and all that. It was really good. So when I got to 22, I was pretty cocky. I was I had a group of friends. All these things that hadn't happened in Melbourne. I had a group of friends. I had a girlfriend who's now my wife. So she's obviously she stuck around for all these years, so I mustn't have been too bad. And as I said, playing footy, I'd moved to Kai then, won a thirds premiership. I was playing, senior footy in Kai. It was like everything was
going well.
I've got a job being mentored by the best dairy farmer in the district. Life was really good. At 22, I asked Marilyn to get married, and so I thought this is a good opportunity to go to Malay, and that's what we did. We looked at our options, share farming, leasing, all that sort of stuff, and we ended up buying 200 acres next door to Mum and Dad, who then moved from Merrigum to Tongala and created a family business. And as I say in my presentations, as that naive 22-year-old went into business with Mum and Dad. So anyone that's in a family business that's listening, probably I can imagine are sitting there nodding their heads.
Relate to it,
relate to family businesses that aren't always smooth.
No.
I went into business with the bank because they lent me the money, which I was quite surprised about at the time. I can remember sitting with the bank manager that day and put my proposal forward, and he just said yes. And Dad was with me and walked out, and they go, so I wonder when we'll hear about that. And he goes, no, the bloke said yes. You can go and buy the land. That's that was surprising. And then thirdly, went into business with my silent business partner, and that's Mother Nature. She was the one that was going to throw me a few curveballs and changed my life a fair bit. And first time was the flood in 93. We got flooded from fence line to fence line. It was a really big challenge for us, non-generational farmers, still finding our feet, Errol and I, but also Mum and Dad, because they were still finding their feet, bought a bigger property and still find their feet. When this flood came, it was the 4th of October, and then just all of a sudden, bang, Marilyn was pregnant, nearly 9 months pregnant. with our first, and she came down the dairy and said, "Look, the house is surrounded by water." And I go, "What do you mean?" And what had happened is the drainage channels had filled and come over the bank and flooded our farm completely. And we're underwater for about 4 weeks, and that was a massive challenge. It taught me some really good skills about resilience and adapting to change and all that stuff. But what it did trigger was all that stuff as a kid that I hadn't dealt with. All of a sudden, that stress of that event triggered that, and started off my mental health journey with a cloud above my head, basically. And that was, something. And I say now in hindsight, one of the biggest lessons that I try and tell people, like, especially in recovery from disasters or, from floods or droughts or bushfires, there's this whole recovery phase where your adrenaline's running and everything, got to fix this, got to fix that. And then you forget to look after yourself. And I realise now I was the number one asset on my farm, and I never paid any attention to me. It was all about fixing what was wrong. And but not with me. And so we moved forward, recovered from that. And then we had family bust up on the farm. Mum and Dad's and my vision of the farm went in 2 different directions. And that was a big challenge because family was my number one value. That was tough. So that turned that cloud into a spiral. And once again, didn't pay any attention to my own well-being, so I had to work out, well, how do I solve this problem? And as a bloke and a farmer, how do I solve this? And it was buy mum and dad out of the farm. I took on, a fair bit of debt. And I say this to go, it was interesting. I took on about $1 million worth of debt. And I said this to a group of cotton farmers one day in central Queensland. I said, $1 million worth of debt, you can just hear them all go, And then I looked outside the shed I was talking in, there was this line of Land Cruisers, and I reckon they would have had $1 million. That wasn't, but I suppose the thing that I want people to take away from my story is it doesn't matter how big or small your challenge is, it's how it affects you and then how you deal with it, or the support that you get to deal with it. And
True.
So, once again, didn't pay any attention to my well-being. We ended up buying mum and dad out of the farm, set out on a 10-year plan. So worked out how could we pay our debt off, how could we grow our business and all that. And 2 years into that 10-year plan, we were flying. We bought some more land, we built a new dairy, had a couple more kids, and everything was really great. We were flying along, and then Mother Nature come and set the drought. The plan was really good. It was fairly robust. We business-wise, we were moving forward, even though things were getting tight. But as we moved into the second and the third year of that drought, things got really tight. And lack of water, lack of sea, finances were getting tighter, and it was a real challenge. And I suppose that family breakup turned my cloud into a spiral, and now moving into the drought, I was just spiraling out of control. And but once again, all my focus was on trying to keep cows alive, trying to keep business running, and not paying any attention to myself. And as we moved into the 4th year, that was like a really tough year. And I hit rock bottom. It was just, it was really dark and scary place to be. Really felt like it was better off me not being here. And that was not a good spot. And that's not a good spot to be. And one of the things that really drive me, what I do today, which will be interesting, we'll elaborate a little bit on that in a minute. But why I do what I do today is that real mission, which my mission is creating awareness and education around mental health and wellbeing, inspiring conversations and empowering people to seek help, is that, I don't want anyone else to get to that spot. And I know that's a massive, big, audacious goal. But if I can just help one person by sharing my story to not get to that spot, that's really what
Absolutely.
After that lowest of low points, it was that I can narrow down to an afternoon. About 2 months after that afternoon, life gave me 2 choices that day. I chose to get better, but 2 months after that, we were done. We were financially, emotionally, and physically absolutely exhausted from the drought. Plus we were highly geared, all that sort of stuff. We decided just to walk off the farm. and that was a real big challenge. And that was one of the biggest challenges that I faced, is trying to find out who I am. And my identity, I left it on the front gate of my farm because I was, and I'd failed. And from that journey, I suppose it's, wanting to get better. It's that personal journey of trying to get better, trying to get on top of my mental health, trying to rebuild our lives because we lost everything. That led me to do lots of different things. Obviously, dairy farming was one of them. So I managed a big farm down in South Australia. We come back home. I managed another farm here for a couple of years, and then decided, look, this is not what it was the same as, not the same as having your own business. So I decided to step out of that, and I did new home sales for GJ Gardner, I think it was, for a couple of months. It just happened to be over the road from a real estate agent in Shepparton. I had a coffee with Rocky one day and ended up doing real estate for a couple of years, which was an interesting journey. And that's why I said I'll come back to that, because one of the seeds that was planted in my head as a real estate agent, or as selling farms and that, doing real estate, was most days I wasn't a real estate agent, I was a counsellor. Okay. Because it was a tough time at that stage. It was, we were fairly dry conditions. A lot of families were, there's a lot of water reform and all that sort of stuff, and a lot of families were making tough decisions. And I found myself dealing with 3 Ds nearly every day, and that was death, divorce, or drought.
Yep.
And you end up being like a counsellor, and I kept thinking in my head, there has to be a way that I can share my story to help these people, apart from selling their farm or giving them the options of what they could do, because kids didn't want to come back and all that sort of stuff. And that kind of planted that seed, and we ended up going back farming again, and then did a speaker course, and it's just evolved from there, mate.
Found your passion there. And
it's just, and I think on that search for my identity and purpose, doing the speaking stuff is now, you realise that. Now I know my purpose. My purpose is my mission, and that drives me every day. And, I still pinch myself every day, mate. Like, I get to travel the country, share my story, and I don't know how that's still happening, but it does. And look, I'm really busy, and on the personal side, that's great. Yeah. But on a national and global basis, that's sad that I'm really busy. Yep. And I'm at the moment getting real frustrated about the challenges that everyone's facing. Like, and that's not farming, that's everyone. Cost of living, high interest rates, or when I say high, that always, I kind of, when I bought my farm, I was paying 21%. So, like, interest rates at the moment aren't that high. Sure. But high interest rates, all these pressures that people are facing, and, and mental illness is something that, even though we've come a long way, or mental health, we've come a long way, there's still this underlying, there's, statistics, the suicide statistics in the country that's still telling me that there's so much work to do. Yeah. And, just this week, I'm kind of really frustrated at the moment, because I'm getting these phone calls from, communities where this is happening. We don't hear about it because it's just, it's still something that doesn't make the news. Yeah. But it's happening in all our communities, and it's really sad. And that's what, drives me now. And hopefully, if one person at every presentation that I do listens or can take something away, well, then, I'll kind of move forward and achieve a bit of.
Yeah. Fantastic awareness. How do you juggle your work? You're obviously fairly busy day in, day out with family. Your kids you've got.
Yeah. So all the kids have grown up, but it's, we've got 3 grandkids now, mate, and it's just like, I just spent half an hour with them on the way here. Yeah. And it's just like, that's just the best thing. It's just like unreal. Lenny's 4, and the twins are 2, and it's just like, it's gold. Yeah. So, they're like, we've got, all our 5 kids, they're, 2 of them are in Melbourne. A couple of them are, the other 3 are up here. Our youngest Lil still lives at home, which is good, but she's 19, so she's only we're motel.
Yeah.
But it's really, it's been good. And that juggle, and even through that whole journey, the juggle's been good, but priority's always been family, you know, even on the farm, even though I work me butt off. And we spent a lot of time, Meryl and I, building that business. We always, I was always the odd kick coordinator or whatever I was.
Yes.
If there was things that I'd prioritise it. If the fence was broken and it needed fixing, or Auskick was on, Auskick was first.
Yeah.
I fixed the fence later, kind of thing.
Yeah.
It was, family was is that priority. And, we're lucky we've got 5 healthy, pretty healthy kids, and they're all pursuing their own dreams, and we're proud of them, and they're kicking goals, doing what they're doing. So can't ask for much more than that.
Yeah, it's a fair journey. Well said, Warren. We appreciate your open, your honesty, and attending our podcast. I think some of our viewers will certainly take a lot out of today's interview. And they can certainly share some of the awareness that was discussed today. So, Warren Davies, the Unbreakable Farmer, thank you. You're doing great things out there. Continue that work. Guys, thanks for watching, and you can follow us all on your preferred podcast platform. This is episode 9. I'm Gerald Sabri, and thanks for watching.
Thanks for listening. Please subscribe on your favourite podcast platform so you don't miss upcoming episodes. We would love you to share this podcast with your network, and if you have any questions or feedback, please connect with us via our social network or head to gagliardiscott.com.au.